Hi everybody, thanks for coming to my session. My name is Bryntse, like the guy on the stage just said. So I flew in from Stockholm yesterday and I run a small company called Bryntum. We're in the web space since 10 years now, doing testing tools, error monitoring and UI tools. And who has not seen that meme, by the way? Is there anyone who's still, okay, that means it's still important to show it. That's awesome, only need one hand. Yeah, so if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're right there. So today we're going to talk about error handling, and I'm going to tell you a little bit later how and why this is important for US testers and developers, because it's really important, I think, and it's something we deal with every day at our company. So let's start with some background and some basics. So what is actually a JavaScript error? So it's just unhandled exceptions in your code base, in your web app, your website, or it could be in the frameworks you use. Like I'm assuming a lot of you know Angular, React, Vue. They will also contain bugs. The browsers will contain bugs, which you have to work around. So to the end user, it doesn't really matter. If there's a bug whose fault it is, doesn't really matter so much. They will have a poor impression. So errors actually matter. And now that we write websites with JavaScript in the size of megabytes, it's no longer just a little jQuery on top to get some animation. Now the entire app is built in JavaScript. We can no longer ignore things that we traditionally did on the server side, like monitoring, error capturing, all those things, logging. So we have to take those practices and bring them to the web. And if this sounds scary, it's not. So it's easy. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to do this. So as a developer or as a tester, you're probably familiar with the developer console in Chrome or Firefox. This is what we see when we know there's an error. A bunch of red exception this, call stack that. So I hope this looks kind of familiar for you. But for the user, when they click at a shopping site, they click add to cart and there's a bug. What do they see? They probably see the same screen, right? And then they click again. And then they get a little frustrated and they click harder because they think maybe I missed the button. Like, does that sound familiar? So they turn grumpy. And we don't want grumpy users, because grumpy users tend to go to another site, to go to a competitor. They leave, right? Because users don't have too much time. So really, there's only two scenarios. So either you capture the error and show the user, okay, we screwed up, something happened, we're going to fix it. Sorry about that. I mean, I think that's the best you can do. Or nothing happens for the user and they will wonder. There'll be like a question mark. And they'll try again. If you're really, really lucky, they will be pissed off enough or they will like your service enough that they will just send an email, hey, by the way, I can purchase something from your site. So, but that's like the best case scenario, which is not super likely because they have way better things to do than to report errors and take a screenshot and describe what they did, right? That's not what an end user should be doing. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, so I built this amazing demo. Feel free to applaud or it's just super cool. So, there's a button here, and if I'm a user, I'm assuming something should happen here, but obviously nothing's happening, so it's pretty disappointing UI experience. But as developers, if we do this, we can see, okay, there's stuff going on here. Somebody didn't implement the cool thing method, right? So I'm assuming we all know what we're talking about here. So when that happens, you get the error message, of course, you get the stack. How many of you have seen the cryptic script error message in a website or in your logs? Yeah, so we don't like that because, how do you know what it does? You don't get any message what the actual error is. You don't get a call stack. Very simple fix. Just add this to your script tag and problem solved. You get all the information. This only happens for external scripts in your website. So it's just adding that little attribute and then you get all that nice information so you can actually start solving the bug. So that's what I mean when I say errors in JavaScript. This is what it's all about. Something crashes in your app, some code path that you didn't have test coverage of gets executed. So of course we want to know when this happens, right? The code is running on the user's Chrome or Firefox, so it's not running on our machine, but we want to know about when things go wrong on their machine. So I'm going to show you now how to build the most simple error logger in less than 10 minutes. If you want to log your errors, of course, you have to store them somewhere. Probably set up a simple MySQL or Microsoft SQL database with a message call stack, something like that. Just date maybe, so you can track how many errors over each date. Some PHP script to receive the report from the web and just insert it into the database. Like really no logic here, just a simple MySQL statement from PHP or Java, C#, whatever. So not very advanced. And on the client side, hook up to the error listener so that you get aware when there's an error happening on the website. And of course, you can add like username or what language, what time zone, what role. Is it an admin role? Is it a read-only user? So anything that will help you debug, basically. So, and you can just not even use Ajax, just create an image, set the source, and then it fires off a request and dumps the message to some of your database somewhere. So if we go back to this amazing demo again, and if we want to have our Ajax request or a request made to our server, I'll just enable 3 lines of code, listen to the error event. I hope this is readable, and just set up some server URL, some script that will capture and take care of this request, and encode the message. Of course, we will throw in the stack later, but just for simplicity. Let's try this demo again. And now you see, there was a request made to here, right? And in the parameters of that query string. So with 3 lines of JavaScript, I was able to log the error. So at least now I know what's going on, which is already like a huge benefit, because otherwise you don't really know anything what's happening at the user machine, which is actually really nice. The downside of this is that you get really to see the dark nature of the web. Because, so sometimes it's nicer to live in ignorance and bliss. Everything is peaceful, no error reports. But once you enable something like this, you'll see the chaos that happens in the JavaScript world. Could be scary, but I always found it's better to know than not to know. So some things to consider if you want to build your own error logger. Probably you don't want to use the production database, obviously. So store this in a non-production in some basement, so you don't get a DDoS attack on your own production server if you have too many errors. Throttle on the client side, probably on the server side as well, because you don't need so many errors. And realistically, if we can get 1 error report from each user session, that should keep us busy for quite some time. So we don't care about follow-up errors, because they could be a side effect of the first. So we're just trying to be pragmatic. And getting 1 error from a user is actually, that's good enough. So this is a bit technical. So how about we zoom out a little bit and just talk about why are JavaScript bugs important to us as testers? And so my vision here is that we can let our users help us test. So for example, at my company, since I'm a cheap person, we don't have a full-time QA department, because that's expensive. So not every software as a service company will afford having testers. To those who can, that's amazing, that's luxury. But if you don't, this is something that we can do instead. So we can have our users be helping us, because they will eventually run into bugs. Unless you write, of course, perfect code, then we're hiring, by the way. But so they will find bugs in your production code. That's a given. And in the keynote, which was great, there was the exploratory testing, monkey testing was mentioned. We do a ton of that, and it helps us find so many random bugs that we could never conceive. And I like to think of your end users as smart monkeys, because they do all the things, that you're actually supposed to do and more. So it's like a mix across, like a bipolar monkey. Just clicks randomly. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it does other things. But they actually exercise your app in a really good way for you. And how they trigger the bugs, that's actually some really interesting piece of data that we can harvest. Again, like a very late stage QA. It's post-release. I mean, it's way too late to detect bugs, but it's much better to detect them than doing nothing, right? So it's just about being pragmatic here. And if we can dream freely, a session crash, like when somebody clicks a button and it crashes, for us as testers, it would be great if that could somehow be a test case that I can just run again, right? And run it over and over, maybe apply the fix, run it again, watch that it's green, there's a check mark. That would be the number one solution. I mean, the best case scenario. So let's talk a little bit about how the bug fix cycle works. So for there to be a bug, it first has to happen. Technically, otherwise it's a feature, right? So there has to be a bug. The bug has to be reported, otherwise the bug will just live in isolation, boring. It wants to come out, it wants to be known. So somebody has to make a bug report. Somebody has to investigate this report. And doing it the right way, first you have to reproduce it, so you understand it, and of course the fix. So that's kind of, at least this is my everyday when I develop, if I am trying to fix a bug. And this is one of my favorite cartoons. I don't know if you've seen it before, but this is something I think at my previous job, you typically get told as a developer, there's a bug on the site, can you fix it? But we, of course, need context. You can't just tell us, hey, can you fix this bug? We need, I don't know if it's readable up there, but that guy, he doesn't want to be bothered unless there's a stack trace. He needs context. You can't just tell him to fix the bug. You need to know some information about the bug, right? So I think his eyes is pretty funny there. That's one of my favorites. So context is everything as a developer when you're going to chase down the bug. And of course, we want a lot of things as developers. We want the error message, of course. File and line number, where did this happen? Call stack would be great. Screenshot of the screen. Sometimes we get that if we have a nice user and they send us a report. Step-by-step description, right? How else do we create a test case if we don't know what they did, right? And maybe a log of what the browser was doing. Was the window resized? Was the network connectivity issues? Who knows? And of course, if you're really lucky, you get to see the user who caused this issue. Maybe he works at a separate department at your workplace. You can just go over to his desk and he will show you how this bug happened. And if you can reproduce it yourself in the production environment, that's amazing. But the best, if you can reproduce it on your own local host in your own browser with your own tools installed, then you feel like at home, you're productive. It's all easy from there. It's downhill. It's just life is good. So that's when we turn productive, right? So I'm not sure why I chose this video, but it just makes me feel like a happy person because it's skiing and ostriches are pretty cool. So unfortunately, it's fake. It's like from a Japanese video or a video making company, but it would be kind of cool to see that in a slope. So that's how I feel when I reproduce a bug on my own machine. Then I know it's going to be downhill. I mean, I've passed the boring, tedious part, but now the fun. Now I'm going to dig down and fix this issue. So for me, a live breakpoint in Chrome is worth way more than just some text in an error report. So common approaches to error handling. How do people deal with errors in their web apps or websites? So the first one and most obvious one is, again, the ostrich. And there's some real good pros here. It's super cheap because there's no cost at all. You're not doing anything. So that's on the upside. On the downside, bugs live forever. They form little families. They take their baby bugs to daycare and go to school, and they grow up and they multiply. So bugs just create communities and start meetups and go to conferences. So that's not so good. So definitely not so good approach to errors. Second one, which is a bit more enterprisey, email ping pong. So you communicate via email with your users, and they will contact their own internal support, and they will send you some cryptic bug report with the useless binary data. And we're talking about web here, so why do we need that? And then, you cannot reproduce it. Happened to me this morning, actually. A customer emailed us a bug report, but we could not reproduce it because there was lacking information. So it just goes back and forth like a month-long ping pong. right? Who has been doing this? I can easily confess. It's pretty common technique. I've thought long and hard about the pros, but I couldn't really find any. But if you know any, feel free to grab me after and I'll update the slide. But there's no real upside to to doing it this way. And the downside, of course, it takes forever for a bug to get fixed because your email is such a slow channel of communication and so much misunderstandings. Demoralizing for both parties. End user not feeling like they get the attention and the help they deserve, right? Third option, going back a few minutes, rolling your own error logger. So I showed you it's like not even 5 lines of code, and you at least get something from the browser when things go wrong. And pros here, of course, you get basic error info like message, call stack, date, user. You get awareness, like you get to see how dark the reality is out there, like what's going on the website, like what errors are my users actually seeing on a day-to-day basis. And the cons, there's a lot of code to scan through each time you get an error message. You have to sort of like be Sherlock Holmes and look through all the files and try to figure out how this bug happened. And fourth option is using a service. And there's probably 20, 30 of these now. So error logging as a service, these have been around for probably at least 10 years. And now we're starting to get somewhere. Now you get tons of data, metrics, graphs, call stacks, console logs, AJAX requests, log, whatever the user did, if they would type something into some strange character into the user input or something. And this really makes you much better at searching for the error, because it kind of pinpoints where you should start looking. It doesn't reproduce the error, but it gets you pretty close. So on the downside, you still have to parse kind of a lot of data, manual work, of course, code review, but it's a huge step forward from doing nothing, right? I mean, we're really getting somewhere here. So let's do a quick raise of hands. Who's doing the ostrich? Usually nobody does this. Okay, one. Okay, that's good. Kudos for raising your hand. Who's doing the email ping pong? Don't be shy. I've done it. I did it today, this morning. All right. Who rolled their own? Who wrote their own simple error logger? All right. 1. Cool. 2. And who's using some third-party service like Sentry? Okay. That's quite a few. So I don't know if I missed a fifth alternative, but if you know any other way to deal with this, I'd love to talk to you after. And so these tools that have been around for a long time, they have evolved, of course. It's not like a static space, like we talked about earlier. Like something is rarely done; it's always like a continuation. So they evolve. Starting maybe 10 years ago, they did kind of what I just showed you, just log the error message, date, call stack, which actually gets you kind of far compared to having nothing. But then in the recent years, we've started to see some really cool tools appear. So let's look at the first generation tools. So probably you have heard a few of these: Sentry, Rollbar, Track.js, Raygun, New Relic, Stack Hunter. Does anyone know these tools from before? Yeah, that's half. That's good. So basic error logging, giving you the call stack, maybe some extra context that you can add yourself. Gives you a timeline of what the user did, so you can kind of, it's like a small book, you can just read a story of what happened during the session that led up to the error. Nice dashboard with graphs, and that's actually a really important part, because I mean, most of us are kind of low on time, so we want to attack the errors first that happen to most users, or maybe our most important users. So you have a really big enterprise account, probably you don't want to lose those, so it's good to know the bugs that affect those users, so you can make sure that they don't migrate away from your service, right? And stats, so you can see over time if the chart's doing this, or if the errors per day is doing that, or this. So that's also something that you can tie into your test discussion, like, do we need more coverage, right? So again, this is all about focusing on awareness. You get really high details of what's happening on my website. And then the second generation tools, now it starts to get interesting. This is maybe rewind 2-3 years ago. We started seeing things like LogRocket, Session Stack, Full Story, Hotjar. Are they familiar? Not so many hands? Okay, but they're doing some really cool stuff. So now it's not only about the text of the error. We now have the possibility to record through just JavaScript, no apps to install, no extensions or plugins to the browser. It's all just native to the web. Video generation of the full session. So you can replay the error over and over, and of course that will really get you straight into context. Like you won't have to guess what did the user do. So it focuses on showing you the bug, not just gathering a bunch of texts, call stack, but actually, it visualizes the whole flow, which to me is like that's an amazing step forward for debugging. And another thing that you get from these videos, from the error reports, is that you see how users interact with your app. You see if they still start like rage clicking. So some of these will actually have, they will show you when there's like a heat map of the user clicking like 5 times on one button. That's usually a sign they're not having a great day. So it's just small things like that, which is not technically a crash, probably just bad UX, bad design, but it's really hard to detect unless you do like personal user studies. But with these videos, if you watch them slowly and not rush, you'll see these small details. And we've learned a ton from this, just changing how our app behaves, because okay, why didn't we think of it this way? Obviously the user wants to do a drag drop or click or be able to type into this field. So you learn a lot about what they expect, and you basically automate that. And as I said in the beginning, what we would like as developers, testers, is of course a test case. So seeing a video is amazing, right? That really tells you what the user did, but that it still leaves the step of actually doing it yourself, setting up the environment to what the user had and all that. So what if we could actually try to have that ideal world? So I want to show you a little bit about what we did to kind of experiment and automate the whole error reproduction process, because there was a lot of mention of automation in the keynote, and which really like resonates in my heart, because automation of everything that's tedious, that's kind of that's in the core of us being developers and testers. So I want to just show you a quick demo of what we use to debug on our websites. So we have a bunch of demos on our website where people come and try out our products. So if I'm a user, I would maybe try some things, move things around. You see there's some summary in the bottom of numbers, just a basic Gantt chart. And we have a feature here called split task, which should split it in half. And now when I did it, it doesn't look very split to me, right? And this is not some made up fake demo. This is actually something I saw in our error report log 3 days ago. So I thought it would be funny to use real data. So this comes with real pain for me because we have to fix it. So when I try it now, of course, the task is not split. It should be 2 parts. So poor user impression right now. But in our logs, I can see that there's a new exception a few moments ago. I can now watch a video of what I did. And you can play it slow-mo, you can play it fast. So now, if I want to debug, it's much easier for me because I can see down to the pixel what I clicked, what I dragged, what menu option I clicked, right? And I can treat this as a YouTube video. I can go back, okay, what exactly did I do here? So it's just like YouTube. So from a debugging standpoint, this just takes it like to the next level. There's no way I need to go to the user and ask them like, hey, can you send me a step-by-step? This is the step-by-step. So we basically cut out the communication need between end user and developer. Or if you're doing this internally in your organization, having this video come from a tester, then the tester doesn't need to create a ticket, upload a screenshot, write all those 10 steps, drag a few tasks, click, split task, etc. So video is a really cool thing, and you get a screenshot, and this is all done using regular web things. There's no installation or extra that you have to install in your user. So it's all just native JavaScript. But the really cool part, of course, for developers to automate things, because I love automation, is of course to be able to get the crash right away, not just the video, but live. So here we actually record everything behind the scenes, what the user does, and we don't only just generate a video, we also generate a stream of the clicks and the types, and the mouse movements, so we can replay it, which then means that I can reproduce it. And so I actually debugged while walking on the stage. So the computer was doing the work, and I could have been drinking a coffee, I could have been in the bathroom, having lunch, but the work was done here. So we basically automated the reproduction of the bug completely. And then I can mark it as reproduced. And then, of course, since we're all about testing here, if we couldn't get a test case out of this, it would be kind of useless. So I can now export this into actions that I can put in my Selenium script or whatever. We can export it to JSON. Here I'm going to put it in a tool called Siesta. And let's see, that's the test suite. And now I can run the test. Let's get rid of this one. So this is our testing tool that we use. But again, this could be any testing tool out there. There's probably 20 of those that do the same thing. Just you can tell it where to click, where to type. Yeah. So no problem getting this up and running in Selenium as well. So now I can run the test and do those same actions. So basically what I had is the user. They didn't know it, but they created a test case for us, which basically means the next time they come back to the site, they won't even have almost time to report the error, because we can fix it and redeploy it. And you see the test is red. So that's kind of nice if you're doing the test-driven development. And then this is the bug. So I can now rerun the test, and hopefully it's green, and we will see a split task. So all about automating the things that really take up time for you and for the end user. So hopefully we'll see a split task now. So now you see it's nice and split, right? That was what the user expected when they came to our site, but they didn't. So I don't know what happened to that session. Maybe they went on to the competitor because they saw that this feature didn't work online. Poor impression. Okay, I need a task. I need a tool that supports this feature. But at least we got aware, so we can fix it, we can write a test for it. So next time we deploy, we know that we won't have this embarrassing bug, because it's kind of embarrassing if you can break it with just one click and the entire app dies, right? It's not the best impression for the user. So that's kind of taking it full cycle, from user creating an error, just generating a test case out of that and a video, and dropping that onto my local host, rerunning the test, making sure it's green. Now I can deploy, and one bug less to deal with, right? So no really any need for that communication between devs and QA, end users, devs, to get to that nice crash report, step-by-step screenshot. We don't need that anymore. We can automate it. And internally within your organization, devs and QA can just have this portal suck in all the information instead of creating a ticket manually, uploading the screenshots, videos, typing a bunch of things. It's all described in the automated ticket, so it saves a tons of time. A bit about the technical stuff. It's all vanilla JavaScript. There's no voodoo or black magic here. Screenshots is made by a really cool tool, open source, called HTML to Canvas, which takes pretty good screenshots of the page. The dashboard is made with XJS. The Replay Studio, where we replay the report, is made by Siesta. So it's all just bits and pieces of different JavaScript projects put into something big. So I hope this gives you a little bit of inspiration. I don't want to sound like too much of a salesperson here, but this is just showing what you can do and what many other tools can do there to cut out the boring parts of bug fixing and test case generation. So really, when we compare Now it's from the occurrence straight to the reproduce step, which just cuts out the whole need to reproduce it manually, need to investigate manually. You still have to fix it, of course. I mean, if I can fix that with some AI, yeah, then I would be rich. Not quite there, but it saves a lot of time. And of course, some of you might correctly be thinking like, what about privacy concerns? What about GDPR? And yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into that, but yeah, there's things to consider. So yeah, that's for a separate topic, but yeah, definitely, yeah, you want to make your users aware that you're recording, ask for the permission before you post. So basically, yeah, the new generation of tools have really opened up ways to work with your application that wasn't possible before. So something to discuss afterwards. So time to sum up. First of all, fix your external script tags so that when there's errors on your website, you should not see just script error. You need more than that to be able to realize what went on. If you're using external libraries like Vue.js and you serve them from some CDN, just put this tag cross-origin anonymous, and you'll get all the info you need. And your users can help you find the bugs with the right tool. So it's just a matter of picking some tool that you think helps you save time, and then you can harvest that information from your website. Even though it's late, it would be much nicer to find those bugs pre-release, but yeah, the world is not perfect. So there will be bugs out there, and we just need a way to fix them faster. And don't rely on your users reporting bugs manually. They have other things to do. Their time is precious. So if they do that, then it means either they're really angry or they love you so much. But yeah, you shouldn't rely on that though. And automate. Just like we heard in the keynote, automation is really important. So you can cut out a lot of time and just have this done by the machines, and we can spend time doing other things. If you want to try this out, the service is called therootcause.io. The slides will be online later, so you can find all the tools I mentioned. So it's not just us doing this. There's tons of really cool services out there. So I believe we have a few minutes for some questions.